the mortality rate or yung mga hindi umaabot sa katapusan ng journey was as high as 30%.
So life and death talaga ito.
Life
no?
and death talaga.
Kaya ba Espiritu Santo ang pangalan nito?
Ang bawat vapor ay may pangalan. Very often it was the name of a saint.
Biyahe. Ito yung Birhen ng Antipolo,
Yes,
di ba?
yes.
At hindi alam ng karamihan sa atin na yung Birhen ng Antipolo, tatak galyon.
And in fact, they used to send the image on voyages for, I think, over a century. She would go back and forth until finally they said it was a little too risky. But from there came the tradition that I still reached it. When I was a child, tuwing mag-a-abroad kami, before you go and when you come back, you go to Antipolo to pray for a safe journey. And then when you get home, you go to Antipolo to say thank you.
Hello, ako po si Pater Nuez Maquel, ang inyong religion reporter. Kakaibang field trip ang sasamahan natin ngayon. Isang private field trip dito sa isang bubuksan pa lang na museum sa SM Mall of Asia Complex sa Pasay City. Ito ang Museo del Galion. At makakasama natin ang Executive Director ng Museo del Galion Foundation, si Manolo Quezon. Itutour tayo ngayon ni Manolo ilang araw pa lang bago yung official public opening nitong museum. Pero ito, meron na tayong sneak peek. Thank you, Manolo.
Thanks for coming, and binabati namin lahat ng mga viewers. Sana dadalaw kayo. If we succeed in our mission in this video to let you know what we're about. So nandito po tayo sa Welcome Hall ng Museo del Galion. Nandito po kami sa MOA Complex. At ang nag-isip na magkaroon ng museum na ito ay si former Senator Edgardo J. Angara. Kung matatandaan ninyo siya, he was former president of UP, a noted scholar, and of course a statesman. At siya nag-isip na bakit hindi natin alam ang napakahaba at napakalawak na kasaysayan ng galleon trade sa Pilipinas. Dito sa gitna ng aming welcome hall, may makikita kayong napakasimple na mapa, ngunit pinapakita niya anong ibig sabihin ng galleon trade. Ito ang connection between Manila and Acapulco. Makikita nyo yung pulang dot doon sa kabila.
Ito, yan.
And twice a year, may babiyahe na malaking vapor na gawa sa kahoy, ang tawag galyon, na pupunta mula sa Maynila, papuntang Acapulco, and then Acapulco, papuntang Maynila.
Acapulco sa Mexico.
Sa Mexico, yes. At mula sa Mexico, nanggagaling ang pilak or silver na pangbayad ng mga bagay na ginagamit sa kalakalan at sa pagbuwis o paggastos ng pamahalaan ng Espanya sa Pilipinas. This lasted for 250 years. Yung napakahabang sinulid na nagko-connect mula sa atin papuntang Amerika at mula sa Amerika sa Espanya naman. Nung panahon na yon, tayo ay parang probinsya ng tinatawag na Viceroyalty of New Spain dito sa Mexico. At ang Mexico naman ay nasa ilalim ng kaharian ng Espanya. So, in that sense, yun ang connection natin sa Espanya. Sila Legazpi at iba pang sumakop ng Pilipinas ay nanggaling sa Mexico para gawing bahagi ng imperyo ng mga Kastila ang Pilipinas. Ngayon, anong nangyari sa halos tatlong siglo na yon? Well, there was what we call so many exchanges. Yung pilak na binanggit ko na dinadala mula sa Amerika ay pinagbibili ng silk, spices, rare hardwoods. At ito naman ang dinadala pabalik sa Mexico at mula sa Mexico sa iba't ibang bahagi ng imperyo ng Espanya, kasama na rin ang Espanya. At kasama na rin dito ay mga ugali, mga salita, kahit mga bagay na kinakain, mga prutas, at mga vegetables from the Americas such as the potato and the tomato, the avocado. At mula naman sa atin, the mango and rice. Di ba? Dinala sa Mexico mula sa atin. So hanggang ngayon, ang tawag sa mangga sa Mexico ay Manila mango.
Talaga.
Di ba? So, mga bagay na hindi nyo maiisip na saan tayo namimili tuwing umaga. Sa palengke. Hindi po ito salitang Kastila. Salitang Nahuatl ito. Yung indigenous language sa Mexico. Yung salita nila para sa merkado or market, naging palengke natin. Kahit ang salitang nanay at tatay came from Mexico. And tayo naman, tinuruan natin ang mga Mexicano na uminom ng tuba. At nung nagkaroon na tayo ng teknolohiya for distilling spirits, dinala natin ang distillation process sa Mexico at inangkin nila yun at gumawa sila ng tequila. So kahit ngayon, ang mga Mexicano, sinasabi nila, ang parang ninong ng tequila industry, mga Pilipino, tayong nagturo ng bagay na yon. And of course, for you and me and many other Filipinos, the main sort of legacy ng connection na ito ay pananampalataya. At in fact, kahit sa mga Kastila, ang ginawa nilang justification para sa pagpunta sa Pilipinas at panatili nila doon ay ang pananampalataya, the need to evangelize and to spread the faith. And you will see throughout our museum na may mga elemento nito na kinikilala namin at pinapakita upang lalong lumawak at maging mas buo ang ating pananaw tungkol sa ating kasaysayan.
Wow. Thank you, Manolo. Maybe we can
So from
walk
here,
around.
we're going to go to the first gallery na papasukan na ng mga visitor. Bago natin talakayin ang pag-iengkwentro ng ating sibilisasyon at ang sibilisasyon ng mga taga-Kanluran, kailangan natin kilalanin ang ating nakaraan. And so we will be starting with the pre-Hispanic world, ang mga ginagamit natin na panglaad sa dagat at iba pang mga bagay na yun.
Nice. Sige, Manolo, while we are walking, gaano katagal yung isang trip, isang voyage ng isang galleon?
It would be months.
Months.
And in fact, yung biyahe mula sa Mexico papuntang Pilipinas ay mas mabilis kaysa Pilipinas papuntang Mexico. Yung
Clarify lang natin, Manolo, no, naglalakad tayo sa elevator dahil
Yes,
ginagawa pa ito,
hindi
no?
po- hindi po ito lindol.
Hindi po ganito itong elevator. Sige, Manolo, go ahead.
we're preparing to open, so kahit yung mga bagay, may mga last minute fine-tuning. So we're getting our 10,000 steps for today.
Correct. So, months, it will take months.
Yes. Let me show you first. We're about to enter the first gallery. So makikita nyo dito, ito ang tinatawag nating balanghay. Ito ang sasakyan ng ating mga ninuno. Ayon sa mga
Itong nakasabit, no?
itong nakasabit dito. This is life size. And in fact, we call this the mother boat dahil ito po ay kinopya sa isang totoong balanghay na hinukay na nadiskubre ng mga archaeologists sa Mindanao at kaya ang tawag namin dito the mother boat. Ito ang sinasakyan ng ating mga ninuno papunta sa Pilipinas mula sa ibang mga bahagi ng Southeast Asia at ito na rin ang origin of the word barangay.
Barangay.
Dahil ang barangay ay isang grupo ng isang pamilya o grupo ng mga pamilya sa ilalim ng pamumuno ng isang respetadong tao na tinatawag na datu, at yun ang naging origin ng organisasyon ng bawat ah, yung sa lengguwahe ng ating mga magulang o lolo at lola, tawag pa nila noon baryo. Di ba ngayon tinatawag nating barangay para ibalik yung sinaunang termino. And what this shows is from the very start, we were a seafaring people na bahagi ng buhay ng ordinaryong tao ang dagat. Wala tayong takot sa paglabas at pagbiyahe sa iba't ibang lugar kahit mahabang malalayong lugar. At napakagaling ng ating kaalaman sa paggawa ng mga sasakyan para sa dagat. Ni isang pako ang ginamit sa mga barangay.
Talaga?
These are all either tied together or fitted.
Hindi sila gumagamit ng martilyo at pako?
Wala, hindi kailangan.
Paano nilulubog yun?
Because dahil magaganda yung klase ng mga kahoy, as it gets wet, it gets tighter. And it becomes watertight.
I see. Wow.
Diba? So, and then in the background, you will see that there is a smaller version of the balanghay. Kasi syempre, iba't ibang mga klase ng ito.
Manolo, ilan yung kasya sa isang balangay?
Of course, depende sa size ng balanghay, but it's about 15 to 20 people.
15 to 20.
Talagang na yan. But normally, you would have about 10 people, about a standard family of a couple of generations.
Pwede magluto dito.
And then, pwede itong pangmahabang biyahe kasama na rin ng mga hayop.
I see.
Diba? Pwede mong dalhin yung manok, yung aso.
Aha.
And it was really used, yung mga iba na makikipagsapalaran, they will just go and discover a new place to settle down. And that's how they did them. Yung iba, yung talagang for long haul voyages, may mga outriggers sila on both sides to increase the stability of the balanghay. Ito wala siyang outrigger, but it could very well have added also because it adds to the stability, lalo na if it's going a long distance.
How did the balangay influence Filipino culture down the line?
Well, first of all,
what parts of Filipino culture can we trace to this?
Actually, the most interesting na nabanggit sa akin was teorya pa lang ito but I think I share it with everyone because it's so interesting. An archaeologist was telling me that bakit ba tayo may ugali ng pagpapara? Di ba? Nakasakay tayo sa jeep o sa sasabihin na sabi niya, isipin mo ang mentalidad ng mga ninuno natin, palagi sila nasa balanghay, sa iba't ibang mga boat. And if you're going from point A to point B, sasabihin mo na lang, oy, doon na lang ako. And hop onto the beach and go that way. And he said, number one, it tells you na sa mga ancient Filipinos, it's all one thing. Walang pagkakaiba ang lupa at tubig. It's the same sort of landscape, to use that term. And at the same time, it's literally fluid. So kung saan mo lang gustong bumaba o sumakay, doon ka na lang bababa at sasakay. And this becomes culturally ingrained. Now, of course, that's a theory, and I just happen to love it. But our basic political organization remains the barangay, derived from the fact na nung nagsadatingan ng ating mga ninuno, they were organized literally by boat. Hindi ba? And then kung sino-sino, kung lumipat ang buong barangay, then they took several boats and then settled somewhere. And then kung sinong namumuno, siya na ang naging datu, and it goes from there. So in that sense, that's the heritage we have until now. The second, of course, is our adventurousness, our willingness to go long distances to seek a better life for ourselves. All of those things, I think, are based on that. And then for the purposes of this museum, it tells you with the Balanghay and with the other different types of vessels that they had then, we had trade with throughout Southeast Asia. When Magellan came in 1521, ang una nilang napansin, yung kasama nila, there was Pigafetta who was writing everything down. Kung lahat na naririnig nila, he was writing it down. He said, when they arrived in Cebu, there was a Thai delegation. There were delegations from other areas, which means everyone was traveling all over, back and forth. Luzon was trading with the Visayas, with Mindanao, with Brunei. In fact, many of the royalty in the Philippines at the time that the Spanish arrived were Borneo royalty. They traced their, babalikan mo yung mga listahan ng mga dynasty nila, they all originate from Borneo. And so there was this very complex trade. Bigyan kita ng halimbawa. The same archaeologists, pag naghuhukay sila, syempre sa mga libingan ng mga ninuno natin, they would discover mga bagay na mahalaga. You're buried with things that are important. Diba? Sa mga nahukay nila sa Luzon, the orientation is towards China. So, mga porcelain from China, important trade goods from China. Sa mga nahukay nila in the Visayas, the orientation is towards Thailand. So, yung mga pottery and things like that na nililibing kasama ng mga importanteng tao came from Thailand. If you go to Mindanao, the orientation is different. It's towards the Moluccas, towards Brunei, towards Indonesia, towards Malaysia. So, even then, depending on where we were, the ancient Filipinos had different points of view. You can even take it more forward, yung in the Visayas, their orientation was towards, for lack of a better word, towards Hawaii. And sa kasaysayan natin, there would be echoes of this. Until 1898, for example, Guam, which is part of the Polynesian islands between Hawaii and the Philippines, di ba? Which shows you yung pagdaloy ng mga tao. Guam was part of the Archdiocese of Cebu. So, it's a totally different worldview. When Emilio Aguinaldo proclaimed our first republic, and they had the Malolos Congress, a member of the Malolos Congress was the representative for Palau.
Talaga.
Because sa pananaw ng mga Pilipino ng panahon na yun, that's part of the Philippines. Why is it part of the Philippines? Because under Spain, there was this thing called the Spanish East Indies, ruled from Manila, which included Guam, Palau, the Caroline, and the Marshall Islands today. All of that was ruled from Manila. So in fact, when I talk to Spaniards, they say, yung Pilipinas ng panahon namin, iba sa Pilipinas na kinikilala ninyo. And they said even Aguinaldo would have agreed with us kasi may representative siya for Palau. So, what are we trying to say? In many ways, we had a very organic view. First of all, yung mga datu at raja, yung mga ibang mga kamag-anak nila, taga Brunei and Indonesia and Malaysia. Ang mga kalakalan natin went as far as Thailand, to China, to other parts. And of course, because of China, we were part of what's called the Silk Road, which was the overland trading route from ancient times that connected China with Europe. Diba? And as later on you'll discover, it's something that happened to that silk trade that made the galleon happen. But for now, here we are in our first gallery, and when you go in there, it will tell you the story, this story. Yung ang mga ninuno natin were part of a living, vibrant world of trade and exchange.
Nice. And hindi siya yung parang minsan ini-imagine ng iba na bago dumating yung mga Kastila, mga barbaro, yung mga tao, di ba?
Oh, absolutely not. We were, alam mo, we had our own writing. We had our own system of laws. There's a debate that goes on because sasabihin ng iba, kaharian ba ang mga ito? But we imagine that in a Western sense. But what's very true is that we had many different communities, some that were very large, complex, with international trade and relationships.
Nice. Wow. So, yung mga bibisita dito, can they board that balangay?
Oh no, please don't. Kailangan titingnan lang natin. And but I think it also gives you a sense of scale na isipin nyo na through these kinds of vessels, makikita natin yung our capacity to build,
Correct.
navigate, and travel.
Correct. And how long did it take you to put together this model?
Well, this reconstruction, this recreation, was built over almost 1 year.
1 year.
But behind it, as I mentioned, lies the work of many more years of our archaeologists in Butuan.
Yeah.
Because doon nila nahukay yung original. At alam mo, in fact, there are other balangays that are still waiting to be excavated.
And then dito sa likod nyo, kanina pa ito nakikita ng mga viewers
Okay.
natin.
Ito po yung highlight ng ating museum. And it will be, the reason why the first thing you see is the balangay, because yun ang connection para sa mga Pilipino mula sa mga sasakyan na ginagamit natin sa dagat, sa ating sistema, at ang dumating sa atin mula sa Europa. And of course, this is the highlight of the museum. If you look up, this is the Galeon Espiritu Santo.
Galeon Espiritu Santo. Yan. Natin ba? Yan.
Yan.
Ito
Yan lang
yung-
po ang ilalim ng
Ilalim lang ito. Ang laki kasi.
Oo. And
Ayan, ito pala. Yan.
Yan.
Ito.
And as we go around, you'll see more of it. It's life size. So it's the actual size of one of the galleons that would have sailed. Itong Espiritu Santo na ito has a very interesting story of itself. It's not a replica, it's a representation. Ngayon, medyo talagang pinaghihirapan namin ang pagkakaiba ng replica sa, diba, sa ginagawa namin. Nung panahon na ginagawa ang mga galleon, each one was in many ways unique. Merong general plans na ang isang barko ay dapat may ganito mga bahagi, ito mga kailangan mong ilagay, but each one was built parang inuuwido lang ng isang master craftsman yung papon na yun.
Parang kinakapalang niya.
Yes.
Oo.
Di ba? May has some guides. So, now that the original Espiritu Santo was lost, wala namang specific plans. So we cannot claim that this is 100% the same as the historical Espiritu Santo. But what we can say, and in fact, tinulungan kami dito ng isang grupo na galing sa Espanya na nire-research nila ang paggawa ng mga galleon. This is very typical of what a galleon of that era would have been like. Lahat ng mga bahagi, kagamitan, nandoon. It's not made of wood. It's made to look like wood because iba na ang era ngayon. Hindi na tayo pwede mag-chop down ng isang forest
Ay, correct.
para
Oo.
gumawa ng bapon.
Ilang puno yan.
Oo, diba?
Kung sakali.
But we think it's very important dahil makikita mo yung the size, the ambition, the technology that made this 250-year-long adventure possible. And understand in a very real way kasi later on we'll be able to enter the boat and explore what it must have been like to go that distance across the entire Pacific. twice a year, not knowing what would happen.
Wow. And this one is how tall is one galleon?
Well, you measure it from the bottom of the what's called the keel, itong spine at the bottom of the boat, all the way to the top of the mast, which is 30 meters. Diba? It would have carried about 250 people.
250 people.
Hindi pa kasama doon ang mga stowaway.
Oo.
It was a very dangerous journey. Earlier, di ba, you were asking me the length of the journey from Manila, from Acapulco to Manila was shorter. It could have taken anywhere from 2 to 6 months. But the way back was the most dangerous part. It could have taken anywhere from 6 months to over a year.
Bakit ganon?
Because yung hangin from the Americas, dire-diretso crossing the Pacific papunta sa atin. But on the way back, you have to catch what's called the Kuchio current. And it's a current that takes you from Japan and then parang tinutulak ka across the Pacific all the way to California. But ang problema, maraming mga bagyo getting from Manila all the way to Japan where you can catch the Kuchio current. So, minsan chamba rin yun. Sometimes you'll miss walang GPS, walang mga complete maps. Navigation was much more basic compared to today. So, a lot of it was luck. And sometimes you'd be unlucky and maybe make a wrong turn somewhere. And then, and the end result is, the mortality rate or yung mga hindi umaabot sa katapusan ng journey was as high as 30%.
30%.
Which means if you were 10 na nagsimula sa biyahe, at least 3 of you would not make it.
Really? And they embarked on that voyage knowing that fact. Kumbaga,
Yes.
it was an accepted fact among them.
Well, maybe it would as an accepted fact among the paying passengers and the captains and the crews, but for some of the crew, like many of the Filipino crews, wala silang choice.
Oo.
They used to have what were called press gangs. And this was something that they also had in Europe. A press gang is grupo na binabayaran ng bounty para dakipin ang mga tao at dalhin at puwersahin na maging miyembro ng crew.
I see.
And you just have no choice. If you made it and survived the trip, you got a portion of the profits as your pay. If you survived.
So life and death talaga ito.
Life
no?
and death talaga.
Kaya ba Espiritu Santo ang pangalan nito?
Ang bawat vapor ay may pangalan. Very often it was the name of a saint. So bihira lang, there were only maybe 3 Espiritu Santos there were 181 galleons over 250 years. Only 3 of them were named Espiritu Santo. Mas marami ang mga San Marco, San Pablo, Nuestra Señora de Guia, Nuestra Señora de Paz y Buen Viaje. Mga ganun. Dahil yun ang mga patron ng vapor to bring it good fortune and success.
Oo, and they really needed a lot of that. No?
Yes.
Kasi the seas are very unpredictable.
Yes, absolutely.
I see.
So from here, let me show you. This is what we
Ang
call the
laki.
galleon hall, and the boat is raised up because you can have functions here. It can accommodate up to 1,000 people, up to 200 to 300 seated. And here you have different aspects of the relationship. No?
Oo. Hardwood, Philippine
Oo.
hardwood,
Agriculture,
agriculture.
religion, textiles.
So ito Philippine hardwood.
Yes.
You would see more about it here.
Yeah,
So-
we're very proud of this diorama. So this is a diorama na pinapakita paano nila ginagawa yung mga galleon. The first galleons were built in Cebu. And then later on, they were built in Bicol and in Cavite. For those that were built in Cavite, yung hardwood would come all the way from Pangasinan and other places like that. Yung talagang may mga virgin forests nung time na yon kasi kailangan mo talaga ng malalaking kahoy. the craftsmen at yung the fine carpenters and workers would come from Pampanga and other places like that. So talagang different groups would come together. The architects would be Spanish. The cooks would often be Chinese.
Aha.
Alam mo, talagang parang melting pot siya, really showing how our society was evolving at that time. Ang nangyari was, bakit naging importante ang Maynila? Dahil bawal ang kalakalan mula sa imperyo ng China unless it was done through middlemen. The Chinese imperial government wanted to keep foreigners at arm's length. So ang pinapayagan nila, may mga businessmen and delegations that would come to Manila with products, silk, hardwood, carvings, fans, and they would sell it in exchange for silver. Yung silver that came all the way from Mexico. The silver was important for the Chinese economy dahil yun din ang basis ng kanilang salapi.
Oo.
At the same time, it started connecting us to other parts of the world. For example, it started connecting us to Japan because Japan also produced silver. So naging part na rin yun yung of creating items of importance for the trade. And because we were the center of Catholicism in Asia, the missionaries that went to China, the missionaries that went to Japan, that went to Korea, all came from the Philippines. So there was this big interchange from the Moluccas, what we know now as Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei would come the spices and other items that would also be traded for Spanish silver and then brought back to the New World. Because in Europe, they were very hungry for all sorts of spices. So that's what started to be made available. So it was our forests and our workers that made the galleons possible. Yung ibang mga galleon were made of such fine wood such as kamagong and nara na yung mga cannonball ng kalaban, according to the ancient accounts, tumatalbog.
Talaga?
Hindi makapasok dun sa vapor.
Manolo, before we move there, mga forced labor itong mga Pilipino dito, no?
There was a requirement under Spain
Yung
called
polos.
polo y servicios. So, your obligation to the crown was for a certain number of days or weeks every year, kailangan kang gumawa ng labor para sa pamahalaan. So yes, it was that was the version of the income tax, except it was labor.
In many dioramas or paintings, we see yung mga ganito in the context of churches, so building churches and bridges. Dito, it's unique because we're seeing them in the context of the galleons.
Yes, and building the
Very
galleons.
nice. It's so rich, no? Itong kanilang galleries. Ito yung mga prutas, yung mga patatas, no? Yun yung sinabi mo kanina.
Yeah. So, in fact, if you look at the story of our food, many of the things we take for granted would have come from the galleon trade. I won't give it away, but when you come here, one of the things you're going to learn is how when you sing Bahay Kubo,
Dito tayo humarap. Bahay Kubo.
Sort of assignment for you, how many of the things you mention in Bahay Kubo are actually indigenous to the Philippines? It's actually a song that tells you how much of the vegetables we eat every day came from the Americas.
And mga ilang percent para maano lang nila? More than half?
More than half.
More than half ang
Galing sa Americas.
Okay. Yan, assignment natin lahat yan. At lalo na pag
At the end of
dito.
of this interview, we'll give you the exact ano.
Wow, this one. So ito yung religion column nila, no?
Yes.
So, and we can see a lot of religious artifacts. These are actual
Yes. So part of it is that we have been fortunate to receive the cooperation of different religious orders and groups. So the UST Museum, the Museo Franciscano of the Franciscan Order, the Augustinians, they have itong pagkakaiba na dahil Pilipino na ang namamahala ng kahit ng mga religious orders. They have now understand na what they have inherited from their Spanish predecessors is part of the national heritage. And that while some of our practices have changed, so yung mga ibang sacred vessels na ginagamit nung araw ay hindi na masyado ginagamit, they still have a story to tell. And in many ways, they bear witness to the unfolding of the faith, the evolution of our behavior, and the actual artistry and artisanship. So, one of the things that we learned, and you'll see in our in the captions, is why is there so much gold and silver? Diba? Because for sacred use, you could only have the most pure and precious items fit for God. That's the reason. It is out of respect and veneration. Whether it's because it will be holding the body of Christ or the body and blood of Christ, or whether it will be used as an object to help with devotion. Why are there images and statues? Not because people are praying to them, but using them to help focus their attention on the sacred. So, and then of course, what you'll see is the human aspect of those who created them centuries ago. You'll see this crucifix, for example. And you'll see that the craftsman who made it must have been Chinese.
Oo nga, no?
Diba?
Medyo singkit si Jesus, no?
Yes, yeah.
Singkit siya at yung buhok niya, hindi mahaba.
Yes. So, and there are other things, for example, that why are some of the most intense devotions among Filipino Catholics to the images which are dark? You know, from the Christ in Quiapo, di ba? The Poong Nazareno, to Our Lady of Peace and Good Voyage. Why are they dark? Why is the veneration so particularly intense? And it's obvious because people could probably relate more closely in those days to someone who had the same color as them. Di ba? In the same way that during the Philippine Revolution, if you look at many images, some of them that have been damaged had their noses cut off. Because this was at a time of great anger against Spain. So the ones that suffered were not the actual Spaniards, it was the religious images that bore the features of the Spaniards.
I see. Itong Nuestra Señora de Buenviaje, ito yung Birhen ng Antipolo,
Yes,
di ba?
yes.
At hindi alam ng karamihan sa atin na yung Birhen ng Antipolo, tatakgal yon dahil
Yes.
yun, nakalagay dito, no? Successful voyages of galleons along the Manila-Acapulco trade route were attributed to her image.
And in fact, they used to send the image on voyages for, I think, over a century. She would go back and forth until finally they said it was a little too risky. But from there came the tradition that I still reached it when I was a child, tuwing mag-abroad kami. Before you go and when you come back, you go to Antipolo to pray for a safe journey, and then when you get home, you go to Antipolo to say thank you.
Oh,
Diba?
talaga? Noon, every
Yun ang
time you
tradition.
went abroad?
Yes, yun ang tradition noon.
Ah.
And that's directly related to the era of the galleons.
Tsaka nakikita rin natin na nagbabago rin yung interpretation, no? Kasi dati, for trade, no? Ngayon, whenever people would, yung mangingibang bayan para maging OFW,
Yes.
usually they go to,
Which is the
Antipolo.
same. Which is the same when you think of it. It's probably the same intensity and request that was made by the sailors back then. Sana makauwi ako. 'Di ba? Sana
Oo.
successful ako.
Oo, correct.
It's the same motivation, I think.
At saka yung mga bagong kotse, no,
Yes.
dinadala rin. Para magdasal at para rin makapamasyal din sa Antipolo, no.
So, pasensya na lang po sa inyo dahil marami pang nangyayari. We're here in the, hectic bago mag-opening. But there are others, for example, we're still finishing this. So, it will be finished tonight actually. But kahit sa mga kasuotan natin and yung iba't ibang mga textiles, if you go to Mexico, meron silang mga woven, yung mga woven na textiles. And nagulat yung mga ibang Pilipino na researchers. Di ba sa atin ngayon, very stylish and very fashionable yung mga disenyo ng mga katutubo. Di ba yung mga patterns na nakikita natin sa Mindanao.
Oo.
So there was a group of Filipino researchers who went to Mexico very recently. And nagulat sila because pumunta sila sa palengke. Remember that word? Pumunta sila sa palengke sa Mexico, nakita nila, bakit may mga indigenous Filipino designs dito? And then, when they asked the Mexicans said, anong Filipino? That's ours, we've been doing this for centuries. Tapos yung mga Pilipino, nagkipagtalunan, hindi, sa amin yan eh. And then finally, a Mexican researcher said, no, the truth is, we learned it from the Filipinos. Dahil, yung mga pumunta sa Mexico para turuan sila gumamit nung loom, the European loom, were Filipino textile weavers na mga katutubo na ginagamit nila yung mga patterns nila at minana ng mga Mexicano hanggang ngayon. At the same time, if you go to Cuba or even to Mexico, meron kayong makikita na parang may suot sila na barong, kaya lang may mga bulsa. Ang tawag doon, guayabera, which is borrowed from our barong. Di ba? Kaya lang sa kanila, medyo practical, may mga bulsa.
Oo.
But yung iba, may mga burda rin. And really, because it's a good idea for the heat, kinopya mula sa atin. So there are all these things that go back and forth. Kung titingnan nyo ang mga sinauna na terno na suot ng ating mga lolo at lola, di ba dati yung, di ba may sleeve, kaya lang meron pang panuelo, at may tinatawag na tapis, na parang binabalot dito. And then I learned from someone na yung tapis na yun, bakit meron? So, the explanation is really very interesting. So, syempre, nung dumating ang mga Kastila, ang umiral ang mga fashion o estilo ng mga Kastila. So, ang mga may kayang Pilipino, ginagaya nila ang pananamit ng mga Kastila. So, Western dress. But, for the same reason na nagbibikini ang isang babaeng Pilipino kaya lang naka-t-shirt sa beach. Di ba? Yung they want to be stylish but modest.
Correct.
Ginaya nila ang dress ng mga Kastila but nagtapis para hindi masyadong kita ang... And so it shows you na because yung mga sinusuot ng mga ninuno natin nung dumating yung mga Kastila, nakatapis lahat. So, hindi nila give up yun. They just migrated it on top of the Western fashion. And it shows you na for those 250 years, hindi lang mga bagay na pinipuwersa sa atin, hindi lang bagay na kopya lang tayo ng kopya. May mga bagay na pinilit, may mga bagay na kinopya, but maraming bagay, o karamihan ng mga bagay, iniba na rin natin.
Atin na ito.
Oo. And in that process, that's what made it Filipino.
Even Catholicism, di ba?
Yes.
Atin na yan. And maraming mga bagay na dito na lang matatagpuan, like Simbang Gabi.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yung intense devotion to the Santo Niño, dito lang yan. And many others.
Yes. Absolutely.
So ito palang galleon, hindi lang siya for, kasi pag sa history books or sa mga pagtuturo sa mga klase, sasabihin lang trade, kalakal. Pero ang nagpapalitan pala, hindi lang yung pilak and silk or whatever, but also culture.
Yes.
Also,
Because syempre,
faith.
like with every human activity, iba naman ang mga hangarin ng mga iba yung mga hangarin ng mga nakikilahok dito eh. The Filipino sailor forced to be on the boat. Wala naman siyang kinalaman sa pangangalakal. All he is after is survival, which is why you had Filipino communities as far as Louisiana dahil yung mga nag-TNT. Di ba? Because of course, everyone wants their freedom. At yung mga iba, they just started a new life abroad. So that up to the 17 and 1800s, kung pupunta ka sa Louisiana, mayroong isang parang town doon na lahat ng mga nandun nakatira sa bahay kubo. Because they had been Filipinos. There's one Filipino scholar who was telling me, if you go to certain parts of Mexico, may mga lugar hanggang ngayon na let's say you'll find a little town, lahat ng mga tao doon have a Filipino surname.
Talaga?
Diba? Because yung mga ninuno nila came from the Philippines.
Oo.
And then sometimes you can even trace. So sabi niya, kung pupunta ka sa isang bahagi ng Mexico where they have a lot of coconuts, chances are you will find yung mga ninuno ng mga ibang tao doon came from what is now Quezon Province. Because that's the coconut area. Di ba? And things like that. You'll go to towns and there'll be a Plaza Filipinas in the middle of nowhere. Di ba? Dahil siguro katulad ng sa atin, may mga seamen or something from Mexico na would go make the trip back and forth. And so yun ang parang remembrance ng era na yun.
Oo. Wow. Very rich, no?
Very rich. In the same way that a Spaniard was telling me na yung binibili natin ngayon sa let's say you go to a Spanish restaurant and you have squid ink squid ink pasta or the squid ink rice. They were able to trace it to one Spanish friar in Bicol. At siya nagpauso. He wrote a recipe, pinadala niya sa mga kakilala niya sa Espanya. Sabi, alam mo, kung kunin niyo yung tinta ng squid at ihalo niyo sa rice, masarap yan. And that's where, the squid ink came from. So there are all these things na the moment we understand it, parang maraming magkiklik sa bakit ba tayo ganito. Anyone who goes to Mexico and hears their traditional music, doon pala nanggaling ang bandurria. Alam mo? Ganun lang yun.
And I think this is very much needed in a world that is so polarized, di ba?
Yes.
Na ang ine-emphasize palagi yung iba-iba tayo. Yan ang emphasis ng mga populist leader who want power, and yun ang kanila parang iba-iba yung tao and sila ito,
Yes.
tayo ito. But things like this actually what I'm learning now from you is this exhibit will also teach us about our nationhood, no?
Yes, yung bakit ba naging isa ang napakaraming mga lugar. What does an Ilonggo and an Ilocano and a Tagalog and a Cebuano have in common with someone who's Tausug? One of it is the accident of sinong parang sumakop sa atin
Oo.
or sinubukang sakupin tayo.
Oo.
The other was because we all knew each other anyway all
Oo.
along, di ba?
Oo.
And yung everywhere you go, we will find a reminder of each other.
Oo. And we are citizens of the world.
Yes, that's true. But the other thing, of course, also that we wanted to remind people is, diba, yung we like to say that we're an archipelago and that we're 7,100 islands, depending if high tide or low tide,
Oo.
diba? But beyond that, we are a maritime nation. We are a nation of the sea. But we have if I can venture an opinion, minsan nagiging landlocked ang pananaw natin. Iniisip lang natin lupa. Which is something that is unfortunate because yun katulad nga ng mga ninuno natin, there was no difference for them between lupa at dagat. Lahat yun bahagi ng ating buhay. And the more we're holistic about it, I think the better.
Oo.
Let me take you
Kasi
upstairs.
sa atin, ang tubig parang hindi binibigyan ng value masyado no?
Oo.
Laging lupa. Ito
Makikiraan
sila
lang
ate.
po.
Makikiraan lang po.
Pwede lang, pasensya na.
Ito po sila, nagkisipag. And bahaging-bahagi nung success nitong ano na ito.
Kikiraan lang po.
So this is 3 floors, no?
4 floors.
4 floors.
Yes. So now we're entering the second gallery, which is about the encounter between two worlds. Our world and the world of the West.
Ayun, ang 4th floor pala. Wow. Kung susumahin mo, kung mamamasyal dito, gaano ka raming oras ang kailangan niya?
Siguro at least an hour. So I want to introduce you to someone.
Oh, okay.
Ngayon, this is a challenging representation.
Si Lapu-Lapu,
Si Lapu-Lapu. But let me ask you, Paterno, is this your usual idea of how you imagine Lapu-Lapu?
No, si Lapu-Lapu, bata. Si Lapu-Lapu, ito may bigote to, no?
Hindi naman, but medyo may edad na.
May edad na, matanda siya. Lapu-Lapu is bata.
Because, but if you were to talk to the historians and the actual scholarship, Lapu-Lapu was about 70 years old at the time of the Battle of Mactan.
70?
70.
Sa mga picture kasi sa libro, di ba?
Oo.
20s siya,
Kasi
no?
inisip natin, battle.
Si Magellan is the old guy.
Yeah.
Natalo ng batang Lapu-Lapu.
But in fact, if you read the accounts carefully of Pigafetta, Lapu-Lapu may not even have been in the battle itself. Because experienced and older commander would have been telling people what to do. Diba?
Correct, oo.
And so, part of what we want to do is not demolish myths, but really have a sincere approach to our past. We don't want to, I think just this statue, ang dami natin pwedeng pag-usapan. Ano ba ang nakasulat sa mga bagay na ginagamit sa kasaysayan? Ano ba ang namana natin bilang mga kwento? Bakit minsan hindi magkatugma? At ano ba ang mangyayari pag pinag-usapan natin ito ng masinsinan? I think it makes us appreciate just how rich our history is. So, here we have Lapu-Lapu, and it's an invitation to really get back to what we know and what we don't know. And
Tsaka
take it
kasi
from there. Oo.
Kung si Lapu-Lapu is someone senior, commanding people, it presupposes a complex
Yes.
system.
Yes.
Hindi ba kasi kung si Lapu-Lapu is siya rin yung nakipaglaban, it's much more simple than
Yes.
isipin mo na meron pala silang hierarchy or chain of command,
Yes.
and he was at the top of it.
And it also tells you why, because then we'll meet the other guy. We had to have a contrast.
Oh,
We'll turn around and then here, but here because I don't want to show you what's there first.
okay.
Over there, oops, this way, this
dito,
way.
yeah. Okay.
There. That is Raja Humabon.
Raja Humabon?
Oo. So let's go towards him.
Ba't ang laki po niya?
Because there we are on more solid ground. Even if you go to Cebu, may statue siya doon sa isang plaza. He was really a big guy.
He was big.
He was a big guy. But
Humabon. Ito si
oo,
Ma-
siya
Raja
naman
Humabon.
yung Raja sa Cebu, hindi ba?
Oo.
And of course, it's kind of suited that you're the big guy of Cebu,
Oo.
di ba? But it also makes you understand why hindi sila magkasundo ng namumuno sa Mactan,
Oo.
di ba? So it's not just some hot-headed young guy who wouldn't listen to Humabon. It's probably a guy who was some standing din, di ba?
Oh, correct.
Who
Oo.
could say no to this guy.
Oo.
And of course, you even have room for the imagination, yung kakalabas lang na movie about Magellan, di ba? Yung plot twist doon, kakaiba eh.
Talaga ba?
Oo.
It's a 4-hour movie, di ba?
Yeah, it's a 4-hour movie, but I don't know if I'm giving anything away, but the idea of the 4-hour movie is Lapu-Lapu didn't exist. It was all an invention of Humabon to play with the mind of Magellan.
Talaga.
But that's the difference between fiction and history. In this museum, we're trying to get back to the history and to get you to understand the difference between kahit sa pagkakaintindi ng ating lipunan, ng ating kasaysayan, kahit ng ating sistema ng pamamahala, sometimes it's still the story of big, strong figures, di ba?
Oo.
Who are trying to get one over each other.
Oo.
So-
Actually, ganito ang leader ng Pilipino, di ba?
Yes.
And it reflects a lot of how we elect our leaders or yung ating mga criteria for
Yes, that's true.
choosing leaders, no? Parang kailangan commanding, kailangan.
We've been very fortunate in
Wow.
receiving the support and help of a lot of institutions. So the National Historical Commission of the Philippines is the holder of these paintings, which came from the quincentennial of the circumnavigation of the world. Remember in 2021?
2021.
It was in the middle of the
Pandemic.
kaya it wasn't the big deal that it should have been. But that was the 500th anniversary ng pagdating ni Magellan, 500th anniversary of the first circumnavigation of the world, and they had a painting contest. This is one of the winners in that painting contest na pinahiram sa amin ng National Historical Commission. And it represents yung sandugo,
Sandugo, no?
'di ba? Yung the pact of friendship where you would cut yourself and then pour your blood into wine and then drink each other's
Saan po ba banda pinuputol? Saan sinusugatan? Dito.
Usually dito yung iba they would put it dito sa 'di ba?
Oo.
But it's a great painting and it's a modern painting, so in many ways shows you the way we visualize our past.
Oo.
There, the National Museum has been very helpful to us. As I mentioned earlier, the Franciscans, Dominicans, the Augustinians have all been very helpful to us, and there have been individual collectors who have decided to lend some of their items to us. So, parang like every institution, it's a group effort talaga. And marami talagang naniniwala, and we're very grateful for that, and the importance of sharing this story. Now, this is a painting we commissioned, and we felt there had to be a way to tell the story of the evangelization of the Philippines. Diba? So, it brings up the whole question na hanggang ngayon pinagdidebate pa. Where was the first mass? I'm not gonna get into that fight, but the fact is, this invites us to reflect on how in many ways we are bound together by our faith, but that faith itself had its own story of conversion, of suppression, of it wasn't always peaceful. Diba? So there are elements here of the destruction of the Anitos.
Yung mga Anito, no?
Diba?
Ito yung mga Anito.
Yeah. But it also includes the removal of the gold and jewelry from the tombs of our ancestors. Diba? It tells a story of conversion, of devotion, for example, to the Santo Niño, of baptism and
Iniregalo na
conversion.
kay,
Yes. So, like the stained glass windows of old, this is in itself a teaching and visual aid.
Yeah, oo nga.
We felt that it would help invite people to visualize and discuss the encounters that were happening at this time.
Oo. This one is very symbolic, no? Yung ginamit niyang pang...
Oo, it's a coconut shell.
Coconut shell, yung ginamit niyang pang binyag.
Yeah.
It's already a mix of...
Yeah. So here we get a better view of our ship.
Oo.
So dun bandang likod niya, makikita nyo may mga hagdanan at pasukan. Later, we'll be going in on the inside the ship and then coming out on top on the main deck of the ship. And really, it's really the highlight of what we wanted to do.
Kaya nga.
As I said, it's life size. Can you imagine being on this for a minimum of 2 months to more than 1 year? As the trip went on, naubusan na sila ng anything fresh. Kahit tubig, after a while, marumi na yung tubig.
Ang tanong ko, anong gagawin mo? Kung nandiyan ka, like, the whole day, what do you do?
Never ending. Because,
Eat lang and sleep and...
No, because you had to be doing... There's the labor of those who are maintaining the inside of the ship and those who are maintaining the outside of the ship. People running up and down the masts to adjust, to bring down the sails, to roll up the sails, to move the sails, to drop the anchor, raise the anchor. There were other countries that were jealous of what was going on, so wanted to capture these ships, so that's why they had guns. This is actually a cargo ship. Hindi ito battleship. But it's an armed cargo ship because napaka-valuable ng cargo niya. So,
mahirap na po kasi ngayong ma-imagine, lalo na sa mga Gen Z, kahit yung mga millennial, kagaya ko, 1 hour, what do you do? Walang cellphone, walang libro, walang music. But this one, based on what you are telling us, there 6 months aboard this ship is a voyage. Parang you're just focused on traveling.
yes, you're just focused on getting to your destination.
Oo, kasi sa atin, di ba, ang travel, nakakapagod yung travel para sa atin. But usually, it means uupo ka sa isang
Yes.
plane, hindi komportable. But this one, they really just had to make it
They
run.
just had to make it work, and they weren't quite sure where they were at any given time.
Talaga?
Tinatansya lang ng mga navigator using the sun and the stars and very primitive maps, but walang GPS. They did not know very precisely where they were at any given time, lalo na when they were out of sight of land. Diba? And then, there's no weather service.
Oo nga eh.
So, hindi mo alam kung, unless you can read the clouds and that sort of thing, hindi mo alam kung magkakaroon ng hangin man lang o wala. Kasi kung walang hangin, hindi gagalaw yung vapor.
Oo.
So there are times if you miss the current or yung pagdaloy ng hangin, you can be there for days or weeks na hindi kayo gumagalaw. Di ba? On the other hand naman, kung masama ang timing mo, nasa gitna ka na ng bagyo. And then you don't know if you're even gonna survive.
So now I'm getting to understand why many of our, in the Catholic faith, many of our devotional stories have sea origins, no?
Yes.
Kasi parang talagang mananalangin ka na niyan, no? Kung di mo alam kung saan ka papunta and parang you're really at the mercy of the heavens and the seas. So, no? Yan.
Yeah.
Ang laki.
So now we're going to enter the ship itself.
This is the highlight of the new museum.
So here we're looking at the back of the ship. This is called the stern of the ship. And
Ay, sorry.
you will see there's a painting of the Blessed Virgin.
Oo. Ito, ang mahal na birhen, ayun.
This is a particular one. It's Nuestra Señora de Guia.
De Guia.
As you know, one of the reasons she's called Nuestra Señora de Guia is that in her original chapel in Ermita,
Sa ermita ito.
there was a tower in which they would have a light and it would serve. Kasi in those days, Ermita was the beach. Di ba? So there would be parang very early lighthouse. There would be a light there to help guide the sailors na palapit na sila sa beach which is dangerous, hindi ba? But because of that, there was a devotion that emerged. Now, there was one particular battle where the Dutch were going to send a fleet to capture the Philippines. And at that time, yung actual Espiritu Santo natin, the original of this ship, had already been retired. So parang nandun lang siya sa Maynila, medyo rundown na siya. But there was no other ship left to defend. So they had to make emergency repairs. Put cannons. And then yun ang papadala nila to face the Dutch. On the day she went out to battle, nagkaroon ng procession from Ermita to the Manila Cathedral. Dala ng mga tao ang Nuestra Señora de Guia to the Manila Cathedral where they held a vigil to pray for the ship. And it was because, siyempre, for the spoiler alert, nanalo ang Espiritu Santo. So the Dutch were unsuccessful, and because of that, the Spanish in Manila felt it was because of the intercession of Nuestra Señora de Guia. So when the time came, because we don't know exactly what was painted, we felt that it would be appropriate and symbolic to commemorate that.
Wow. Nice.
So let's enter the ship.
Ang naalala ko nung kinukwento mo kanina, yung ship natin sa Ayungin. Pero ibang kwento 'yon. Ibang kwento 'yon.
Ibang kwento yun.
Hanggang doon lang sa retired.
So now
Ito.
So now we'll be entering the ship. And as you enter, you get a clear idea of what it was like for 250 or more. Yung 250 official capacity yun nung galleon. But kahit ngayon sa ating mga inter-island ships, minsan kung ano yung nasa manifest, hindi yun yung... Diba?
Ayan.
So, of course, right now, it looks very clean and tidy. But imagine this would have been crammed with people. And they would have just had to find ways. You notice, walang kama. Ang mga crew, they would just hang hammocks between the beams.
Oo.
Kung saan at doon na lang sila matutulog. Their guns would have to be ready. And here we wanted to
So dito sa kanila, dito sa loob, merong mga ganito, no? You can read through there.
Yeah. Now, if you were a member of the crew, this was the most desirable place for you to sleep. For one basic reason, at least may bintana.
Oo.
Because there's no aircon, there's no electric fan. It's full of people. Sarado lahat because you don't want the water to enter. So ang pwede lang buksan ng mga bintana dito, ito mga gun ports, they're called, for the guns. And so if you're a member of the crew, gusto mo dito ka matutulog because everyone else nasa baba na wala man lang bintana.
Walang bintana.
Yeah. And as we showed you, many of our ancestors who were on these weren't even given uniforms or any clothing.
Oo. And paano kung nasuka ka? Like, syempre, I was imagining ang baho siguro dito
Yes.
dahil yung mga kung ano-ano na lang, sumuka ka, nadumi
Sumuka
ka.
Yung the actual toilet is on the front of the ship.
Ano, may toilet naman?
Hindi, it's a plank of wood. You know the pointed part of the ship above the there's a few holes there and you squat over the hole so it falls to the sea.
Oh my
But
gosh.
kung may bagyo o malakas ang hangin o maginaw, ayaw mong mag-ano doon, di ba?
Yeah,
So some would just hanap na lang sulok sa ibaba.
Sa baba.
Bahala na.
E di sobrang baho.
Yes, and so that's why people like to be up here. This of course gives you an idea of what they would carry on board for you to eat. Salted pork. Siyempre, walang refrigerator.
Walang ref.
So, kailangan salted. There would be beans dahil you don't need refrigeration for that. But then, by the second month, may mga uod na yan and that sort of thing. And then, of course, the different products. So, one of the things that they discovered was in large demand was beeswax from the Philippines.
Paano kung naubusan ng pagkain? What happens?
Well, the very cruel calculation was maubusan talaga, but by that time 30% of your crew would have died anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So-
And then if they die in the middle of the voyage, how do they dispose of the bodies?
Overboard.
Itatapon na lang?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then so you would see here, this is a cargo ship. So below it's crammed full of barrels, of they would have bales and planks of silk. Every ship had a very limited cargo space. So kahit sa pagbalot ng silk, the merchants in Manila found a way na binabalot nila ng husto para you could cram in as much silk in a small space as possible. It was an art of itself. And more often than not, kahit merong official limit sa ilang tonelada ang pwede mong dalhin na cargo, syempre dinadaya ng mga iba. So the problem of many galleons was they were overweight. And because of that, they had a tendency to easily sink.
I see.
So that's why there are many galleons that never made it to their final destination. Dahil pagdating ng unang bagyo, lumulubog na lang yung galleon. So, you know, human greed has very concrete consequences.
Oo. So 200 to 250 people, panay lalaki lang yun or may mga babae din?
Officially, walang mga babae. But sometimes, there are records that sometimes people might smuggle in their wives. Some some of the more unscrupulous captains might bring a concubine.
Concubine. Saan ka naman? Concubine. Where do you have sexual intercourse in this kind
Well,
of...
as you will see in the next deck, the reason why many of the officers might have that was because they had their own rooms.
They
Sila lang
had
ang
their
may sariling kwarto.
rooms. Di
Yes.
parang ganito, parang hanggang ngayon parang ganyan, di ba? Yung mga may VIP treatment. It's not just for the modern age. Mahirap tumira dito.
Okay. Let's just take the elevator. Normally we would have
Okay.
to go that way, but let's just do it here.
Oo.
Is this working?
This is for ano.
This
so,
for PWD.
when you visit, you don't have to worry if you have senior citizens or
Yes.
PWDs. It's very accessible, no?
Yes.
Actually, yun ang iniisip ko kanina umakyat tayo eh. So,
So for
definitely
PWDs, they can go directly here, go through, and then you go out again and then go to the second level.
Oo. Wow. Pero nung panahon ng Galleon, walang mga PWD
Wala.
accommodations, no?
Wala.
Talagang kung matanda ka, aakyat ka talaga and paano naman kung nagkasakit ka? Wala na talaga, no? Kung nagkasakit ka dito sa loob,
Wala.
wala na.
Wala. It was really a very cruel. For those who were involved in the actual galleon trade, it could be very, very profitable. But that's only a few people. But for everyone else, you could maybe expect for those who were forced, I told you the ones who were brought on by the press gangs, you had a duration for your forced contract. And after that, it's up to you. Some would stay on because yun na ang alam na nilang buhay. Others would then use whatever they earned and then maybe it would be puhunan for something. So now we're entering through
Ayun,
the...
si Nuestra Señora de Guia. At ang Espiritu Santo nasa taas niya.
Yes.
Ayan. So this is
This is this is an area that wouldn't have been open. This would have been a kind of balcony for the captain.
for the captain.
Yeah. This would have been dadaan lang po kami.
Ito na ang VIP area.
Yeah, this
Ang ganda
this
naman
would have
ito.
been the quarters of the captain.
Ibang-iba.
Oo. So this is where his for entertaining and where he would have his meetings.
Wow. Meron pa siyang study
Yes.
area.
And then this is an example of the
Wow.
of the rooms for the other officers on board.
So may social stratification din pala dito.
Yes, very, very extreme. Oop,
Ay.
careful.
Ito pala, may
Yeah.
kanya-kanya palang kwarto ang
Yes.
mga
Officers lang ito.
mga officers.
And this is the main
Talagang
deck.
ano siya, no? Yung...
Yes, you notice
Oo.
it's very low.
Low siya, very
because
low.
they were actually not very tall.
Ang alin po?
The Spaniards.
Spaniards?
Of that era, yeah.
Talaga?
Their average height would have been 5'4" to 5'5".
Ah.
You know, if you go to Spain to this day, if you go to the Escorial, yung palasyo na pinatayo ni Philip II of Spain, the king after whom we're named, kaya Filipinas. To us today, his bed looks like a child's bed.
Yeah, and I remember si St. Ignatius of Loyola is small, di ba? Yung
Yes.
kanyang bed din is small.
Right?
I
Yeah,
remember.
they were all very
Oo.
small. And of course, even to this day, in most ships, it's cramped because you're trying to save
Oo.
space.
So yung 4 feet ni Jose Rizal, ano nga siya?
No, actually 5'1", ha?
5'1".
Yeah.
5'1", it's not
It
bad.
was Bonifacio who was 4'11".
So medyo hindi naman siya kalahati lang ng Espanyol pala,
Yes.
no?
Oo.
Oh, okay.
And so this would have given you an idea. This is the
Wow.
main deck.
Mhm.
So you would have controlled the ship from there.
Mhm. Wow, nice. And this required a lot of imagination, reimagination, no?
Well, it's really based on a combination of things. So there are existing guides and plans. So the group we worked with, which is called IFVIAL Barcos Históricos in Spain, their first basis was there are existing sort of guides. So from this era, from the 1600s, this is what the parang ideal galleon should have been. Through the archaeology of wrecks, you have actual surviving, parts and pieces. And then you can make deductions from that.
Ah.
Because syempre, kung anong nakalatag sa libro, yung actual paggawa nyon can be very different. And you learn a lot by actually digging up the galleons that sank. And written descriptions and catalogs and other records. So from this, we know that a galleon of this era would have had these dimensions, had these features, had these masts and this kind of rigging. A galleon maybe 50 years after or before would have been slightly different in other details. Of course, they're always evolving and learning.
Manolo, sinabi mo kanina, this is not a battleship. This is for trade. Pero bakit may mga kanyon all over?
Precisely for self-defense. Because Spain, as the ruler of an enormous empire, and because it had a monopoly on the richest silver mines in the world, and it paid for all its colonies through transporting silver, walang electronic transfer noon. So you had to actually bring chests of gold and silver to pay the salaries in Manila, to pay the salaries in Cuba, di ba? To pay anything. Every time Spain was in a war, and it was always starting wars, its enemies wanted to capture its ships, including the cargo ships, especially the cargo ships. So, and again, that has an impact on us. La Naval de Manila, the reason that there is this, we have La Naval is to commemorate the intercession of Our Lady of the Rosary, her intercession was sought to repel the invasion of the Dutch fleets that were coming to the Philippines precisely to try to capture the galleons. So that's why you have these guns.
I see. Ang dami mula doon, no? Mula doon.
Yeah.
Sa baba, lalo sa
Yeah.
baba dito.
Kahit sa harap and everything.
Oo. And this is the
Coat of arms
coat
of the Spanish Empire at the time.
Oo.
And so over there you would see where there would the wheel.
May pari ba silang kasama?
Always. Always,
talaga?
yeah.
How many?
Because it depended on who was being sent. The fresh recruits would be sent from Mexico to Manila, and then those who are retiring would go from Manila back to Mexico and Europe. And as we know, we marked a very different experience. People always ask me, bakit sa South and Central America, lahat sila nagkakastila?
Oo.
Tayo hindi.
Oo.
And I say, it's because of the experience, because of dahil sa nangyari sa Amerika. When as we know, the Spanish conquest of the Americas was very violent, very bloody, very cruel, and also introduced viruses that wiped out large parts of the population. Because of that, there were members of the clergy, Bartolome de las Casas is the most famous, who started advocating the rights of the indigenous people. yung ibang mga kaparian na in a sense were inspired by Bartolome de las Casas and others were the first group of Spanish priests who came to the Philippines. In fact, our first the first bishop of Manila made his name resisting the efforts of the Spanish government to enslave the population. There's a reason why the Spanish did not introduce slavery to the Philippines. It's because there were already priests who were fighting against it based on what they had experienced in South America. And part of what they advocated was, how are we making sincere conversions if the natives do not quite understand what they're being converted to? Therefore, yung logic ng mga pari na yun, we must learn their language to teach them about the faith in ways they will understand. Otherwise, it's not a valid conversion. Which is why sa atin, the Spanish priests learned Tagalog, Ilonggo, Ilocano, Kapampangan, instead of forcing us to speak Spanish.
Oo, and yung doktrina Kristiyana,
Yes,
di ba?
diba? The first
Catechism.
printed book here was bilingual.
Oo.
So, in a sense, we were the inheritors of a reform that started in the Americas. And so, radically affected the kind of colonialism that they had in the Philippines. It was different from the Americas.
Pero meron pa ring mga those who thought in the old ways, di ba? Yung mga
Yes.
mga paring ganun
Yes.
pa rin, no?
But in general, that's why we did not become a Spanish-speaking country. It was not forced.
I see. Wow, that's something new I learned
Yeah.
today. Oh.
So, I think because of that, as you go through our museum, and I hope you will come and visit, these are just some of the aspects that we hope will be introduced to you and become a topic of conversation na pwede pag-usapan, pwede pag-isipan, pwedeng i-share. I think it will make you realize that we have a much more rich, complicated, and in many ways inspiring story than we always thought.
Last question, Manolo. In general, what do you think does the galleon trade tell us about how Christianity took root in the Philippines? How did it influence it?
It shows us na yung Kristyanismo na dumating sa Pilipinas already came at the end of a very painful period of learning in the Americas. In many ways, yung umabot sa atin was more humane and perhaps as a result, more successful. Certainly more adapted to us, which is why I think it made such firm and deep roots. At the same time, this is a process na tuloy-tuloy pa rin. And that we see it in every day in every aspect of our religious life.
Wow, thank you, Manolo. Marami ako natutunan sa trip na to with Manolo. Thank you very much, Manolo. And I assure you that when you visit this museum, hindi lang makikita nyo yung complexity nung paglalakbay nung panahon na yon, but it will force you to look deep within, no? Because this is a museum that allows us to reflect also on our identity as Filipinos, as citizens of the world. So, maraming salamat sa panonood sa amin. Salamat, Manolo.
Thank you.
Ako po, si Paterno West Makel, ang inyong religion reporter. See you again.